Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Star Watch, which is a weekly astrological transit report. If you are new to my channel, my name is Jane. Welcome to everyone. So this week is kind of an interesting week. There's a lot more activity going on this week as opposed to last week. We are officially now in Virgo season, so happy Virgo season, everyone. And one of the things that really stands out, and I mentioned this in a previous video, really stands out is this like crisscross energy that we have going on right now. Okay, we have the sun currently in an opposition this week with Saturn, which is a highly productive, highly focused and disciplined, even a somewhat stoic situation. But then we also have Mars and Mercury here in this opposition with Neptune. Yes, Mercury retrograde officially started yesterday, the same day that the sun came into Virgo. So Neptune is really adding to the kind of idealism, the dreaminess, the desire for freedom, and the desire to kind of live a little bit more whimsically, and to focus a little bit more on our healing and all these types of things. Now, neither one is good or bad. It's just that there's somewhat of a contradiction going on. Some of you may lean in a little bit more toward the Saturnine influence, and others of you may be leaning in a little bit more toward the Neptunian influence. Either way, this is not a time to feel guilty for however it is that you're leaning. Okay? If you need to be productive, then just go be productive. And if you need to take some time out, just go take some time out. I think one of the problems, and I myself guilty, right? We often talk about the productivity and the hard work and all the organization and getting things together with Virgo. And while that's true sometimes, I don't think that's going to apply this year. Okay, this year astrologically, Virgo season is not about getting all your ducks in a row necessarily. It's more about kind of embracing the chaos of change and allowing the pendulum to really swing in a new direction. And sometimes that can be very disorienting. Sometimes you really don't know exactly the way everything is going to go. And while you can have some semblance of short-term vision, right? You can at least say, well, if this is where I want to go, then today I need to take these steps. Okay, well, that's fine. And you can keep doing that. But when it comes to that long-term projection, you may have to kind of tap into a lot of faith right now and just allow the adjustments to occur organically and naturally. Okay. So this week we have the sun continuing on. That opposition is just going to get a little bit stronger over the next few days. And then it's going to start to come off of Saturn. Mercury is going to start kind of getting off that 21st degree, which is the degree where he's stationed retrograde. He's going to start getting to that 20th, 19th degree next week. We're going to start seeing more and more Mercury retrograde effects. Now, one of my predictions with this particular Mercury thing is interruptions to the systems, interruptions to the schedules. It might be communication errors. It is still Mercury after all, but I think it's more about like systems breaking down and things not going in a way that is within your realm of control. It's like, your child is at school, you're at work, and then halfway through the school calls and says, hey, your child's sick, you need to come pick them up, and that's going to interrupt your day. It's going to be that type of thing where you can't really plan for it, you can't really foresee it. It's probably not that big a deal. Is it an inconvenience? Yes, but it's also probably not really that big of an issue either, okay? We also have Mars moving into Libra as well. Now, we know that Mercury, and I've said this before too, Mercury is going to be the strongest planet in the chart all month, throughout the whole, well, I say month, but the whole of Virgo season, okay? Mercury is at the top of the top, which means we're in this mutable, flexible, adaptable kind of place. Mars, which is normally a planet that gives us direction, it gives us focus, it gives us even kind of a sense of purpose or a mission, he's going to be falling to the very bottom this week. All right. So as I forward to the 27th, when Mars comes into Libra, we can see him moving down to a -4, and then he moves down to a -10 this week. Now, having a weak Mars is not necessarily a bad thing. When I say weak, it doesn't mean his energy is completely gone and we don't have any of it. It just means we have to be more intentional with it. Because he's in his sign of detriment, he is coming off of this opposition with Neptune, which is kind of draining for a planet like Mars, also the sun as well. It's very draining for these masculine energies to come up against Neptune. He comes not only off that opposition, but he also comes into a trine with Pluto. He comes into I don't want to say he comes into a square quite yet, but anyway, so he comes into that with Neptune, and then he comes into a sign of detriment. Libra and Aries both are kind of the equinox seasons. Okay, we've got the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere during Aries. We have the vernal equinox during Libra, again, northern hemisphere. And it's these equinox points that signify the change in light, right? Because now all of a sudden, the light is not so strong, right? We reach that, and now the nights are starting to get longer, right? And we make our way up to the solstice, which is when the night is the longest. So we're starting to see much, much shorter days during this time. I think the Virgo energy is really trying to hang on, but Mars is kind of leading the charge into the new phase. And Libra is kind of forcing us to do it in a way that doesn't completely rock the boat. I don't see this Mars as being super disruptive. I don't see it being negative in any way, but it may feel restricted, okay? It may feel like you want to initiate new things, but you hold yourself back because you don't necessarily want things to change so dramatically. Libra is not, it is a cardinal sign, so it does like to initiate, but it likes to do so peacefully. It's not impulsive the way Aries and Mars can be. Libra likes to keep everything cool, tempered. It likes some semblance of control, and it likes to be strategic, and it likes to know that it has some semblance of success. Yes, there can be an element of risk involved here, but it's like a risk with a really, really high likelihood of success, okay? So I'm not saying that you just need to sit around and putz around and wait for this transit to be over. If you're feeling inspired to go do something, then by all means go do it. But I also know that the inspiration to go do something is probably coming from a place where you feel pretty confident that it's going to go well. And that kind of sets you up for a lot of success in the future, which is great. And because initiating something new is a part of transitioning, which is what Virgo season is all about, this goes very well hand in hand together. Initiation as a means to transition. And there can be a little bit of illumination that goes through here, but I think we're going to see more and more illumination as we make our way into Scorpio season, even as Mars makes its way to the South Node, as we kind of move into eclipse season next month, or a little bit longer than that, but next month we move into eclipse season. And we're going to start seeing things dropping off at that point. So you initiate now, and the things that need to be dropped off will be in the next couple of months. We also have Uranus retrograding on the 28th. So Mars comes into Libra. Next day, Uranus retrogrades. And then in early September, we have Jupiter retrograding as well, which means that these two planets are kind of adding to the retrograde season. We're going to have a lot of retrogrades come September. And there's a lot of whiplash when we have so many retrogrades happening. There's a lot of internalization, a lot of processing, especially processing and analysis because we are under the banner of Virgo. Reevaluation is always a big thing with Mercury. So it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of people just went into this more pensive, contemplative, thinking about life, thinking about what you want, thinking about the best next steps, and just kind of allowing yourself to think about stuff. Because we went through this whole Leo thing with Leo, Venus, retrograde, and all that. With Leo season, we had Lilith involved, we had all this Leo stuff. And it was so dedicated to like, what is your heart telling you? But sometimes what our heart tells us to do, we struggle to kind of match logistics with it. This is probably going to be a time where the logistics are going to start to reveal themselves so that we can say, all right, well, if this is the main value that I'm holding as my top priority in my life, then I'm going to need to readjust my life around it. And slowly but surely, we can start integrating it more and more in a way that is manageable. Okay, we're not trying to do these huge things right now, unless that's your natural personality and that usually works out well for you. If that's the case, fine, do whatever you need to do. But I think for the rest of us, this is about a slow and deliberate integration and a slow and deliberate becoming, which will continue to take place over the next 1.5 to 2 years. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. Okay. And when Jupiter retrogrades, I also think we're going to be aligning with a much higher meaning for things. You know, we're not just going to do things just for the sake of doing it. We're going to do things because it kind of does give us that sense of fulfillment. It's not really about the money when Jupiter retrogrades in Taurus. It's very difficult to make it about money. It's very difficult to make it about the material, but it is more about just bringing beautiful life into the world. So this transition period this week, as we kind of get more comfortable under the Virgo banner, the more flexible you can be with your plans, the better. The more flexible you can be with your dreams, the better. I also suspect that you're going to be a little bit more private than normal, kind of keeping to yourself a little bit, behind closed doors, working on things in secret, that type of thing. This is not really the most social astrological environment. There's a lot of self-focus right now. Once the sun hits Libra, once we kind of get from Libra, Scorpio, Sag, we'll start seeing more social stuff going on. But even a Mars in Libra, because Mars is such a hyper-independent, autonomous thing, even within a relationship, it's still going to be very much about you, and it's still very much about them, and you have to do your thing and they have to do their thing. So it really is what's best for you is going to be what's best for all. And in order for you to figure that out, you might need to just kind of digest on that a little bit. So give yourself that space, give yourself that grace, enjoy the process. It is supposed to be, you know, kind of, I don't want to say it's going to be like an exciting process, but it's definitely a flowering process, okay? One that continues to peel back and reveal layers. And if you can have that sense of enthusiasm about the revelation process, you're going to be in a really, really good place for what's coming, okay? So my main recommendation this week is just to honor what it is that you're feeling pulled to do. If you are feeling more disciplined and you want to push goals forward, by all means, do it. If you want to initiate something and you're feeling that inspiration to, by all means, do it. But if you're not, and you are in this more whimsical place where you're just simply more open to options, honor that as well, because it doesn't have to be so seeable. And it doesn't have to be so knowable right now, all right? Just honor where you're at. We're all going to be in different places. That's one of the things about a Mercury-ruled season is there's so much variety, and it's very hard for an astrologer to put us all in a box about how we're all going to be experiencing this because it just simply is not going to be the same for any of us, okay? All right, you guys, I love you. Have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.